Hey guys, Justin here, or you can call me Moose. Welcome back to another video. This is another episode of my series, The Beginner's Guide to Airsoft, where I take you from beginner to pro in no time. I'm here today with my good friend DeWolf. You'll see him a lot of time in my videos. He's usually got the spotlight more than I am, because I'm behind the camera, he's in front of it. So, great friend of mine, and anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started here with Airsoft Radio Basics. Alright guys, so before we actually get into the video, I would like to make mention that I do have a Discord server. I've been told by several people I need to actually mention it for people to find it, because nobody reads the description of videos anymore. But if you look in my description of every one of my videos, you'll see I have a link to my Discord server. It's a really good place if you want to reach me, ask questions, or to get insight on future projects or videos. I'm going to eventually be doing giveaways. I'm making a ghillie suit, like all these tons of really cool stuff. Or if you just need to ask questions, the Discord server is the place to do that, just because YouTube is not a really good place to have conversations, just because YouTube doesn't notify each other. It's a hassle, so check that out. It's in the description below, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the video. Alright guys, so like I said in the intro, this is the Airsoft Radio Basics. This is not an in-depth thing for every single radio, how to use the radio, how to change the channels, the frequencies to use, all this sort of stuff. This is not that type of a video. This video is for you beginners out there that are just trying to get a brief overview on radios, as well as the majority of this video is going to be talking about proper radio etiquette and how to communicate efficiently and effectively with a radio on the battlefield to better further your squad or your team's push against the enemy. And so what this video is not going to be is it's not going to be about the laws or frequencies or anything like that. Like I said, it's mainly about the communication, but we'll give you some brief basics for the stuff around that as well. And so what I'm going to first mention is, does it really make a difference? And the answer is very much yes. Radios make such a big difference in the battlefield. However, this only matters if you have two things. One, you need somebody else with a radio, otherwise you having a radio is not going to do you much good. And two, both you and the other people that have radios need to know how to use them correctly. Otherwise, they actually hurt more than they help. And so in this video, we're going to actually show you guys how to have a proper radio etiquette, as well as how to use one effectively to help your team and yourself being able to make that big advancement. And so another thing is, some people believe that they have to go to school to learn how to use radios. No, you do not. This video should be plenty to get you started and well on your way. The only thing else you would need to know that this video does not cover is the frequencies to use and different types of radios. But other than that, we will make some brief mentions of different types of radios and walkie-talkies, but we'll just do that in very briefly. This video is mainly about the actual communication and use of a radio.
Yes, however, with your radio frequencies, you do have to remember that you can't just pick up any radio you find at Walmart or Amazon or wherever and then use it around the house with every frequency. So some frequencies are covered,
they're actually used for like military, law enforcement, emergencies.
So you can't just use every frequency. That would be do more research on, we are not licensed to talk about that, do more research on what licensing you need and what frequencies are protected that you cannot use in those roles, and then when you're not in the field. When you're on the field, usually it's a little bit more protected, but that would be, again, talk to your field admins and talk about your specific fields.
That is a very good point.
Walkie-talkies are more protected, and you can actually access walkie-talkie frequencies with your radio, and that's way more protected as far as those are almost always legal to use.
100%. That's very good to mention, because like you said, you cannot access all frequencies. Even though the radio itself does not restrict you, you are not permitted to actually transmit on certain radio frequencies. And those frequencies may kind of vary depending on where you are, but most of the time they're pretty much the same thing. You can find lists online. Essentially, you're just not allowed to use the GMRS frequencies, but there are some frequencies that are open for public use. You just have to be careful about that. However, like DeWolf said, when you go to your local fields, ask your field admin, ask the staff there. They will know what frequencies you are allowed to use and actually be able to give you your team's frequency, so you're not accidentally operating on the other team's frequency as well. So that is a really good way to know which frequency to use without accidentally getting into trouble. Alright guys, the next thing we're going to talk about is the difference between a radio versus a walkie-talkie. Both of these I have right here are radios. The difference is they are very, very similar. However, radios operate on different frequencies than walkie-talkies. However, a lot of radios can actually access the same frequencies as walkie-talkies. So in some cases, you are actually able to communicate to somebody who has a walkie-talkie if you have a radio. However, I will say walkie-talkies are not made for the same scope of things as radios, and so they will not be able to go as far. They will have interference with like the trees and stuff a lot more than a radio will. You can get some more expensive walkie-talkies, but at that point, might as well just get yourself a radio as well. It's just depends on kind of what you're wanting to do. If you're just wanting to start out, want to get something cheap, you can probably find a cheap walkie-talkie thing, and it can still get the job done. If you're just wanting something for you and your friends for a quick, easy thing, it could work. But you can also get some really cheap radios too. I will say be careful with those, because some of those are actually not allowed to operate on some of the frequencies that you use for airsoft. But once again, that's not something we're going to cover fully in the scope of this video. This is for if you already have a radio or are just looking at how to use a radio. That's what this video is mainly about. Alright guys, so already kind of talked about the difference between a radio and a walkie-talkie, and so the main thing is do you need a license for either one? The simple answer is no. However, the longer answer is that for some frequencies that radios can access, you do need a license to access those frequencies, even though the radio has no restrictions to access them. What that means is if you do not have a frequency and you transmit on one of those frequencies and are using it all the time, you will get found out and you will get fined for it. However, I will say this, there's not been too many people that have actually ever been in trouble or fined for that. But don't be that lucky guy, alright? That's all I'm saying, because some of these fines can be upwards of $10,000 and jail time. It's not worth it just playing a simple game of Airsoft in the backyard with your friends, trust me. Best thing to do is just figure out which frequencies you're allowed to get on, and then only worry about those frequencies. You can, in fact, program them into your radio, lock the buttons, and then never have to worry about it again.
Also, with radios, you can always use walkie-talkie frequencies as well, and the radio using walkie-talkie frequencies will usually be better than a walkie-talkie on walkie-talkie frequencies because of the nature of the radio having stronger power output and the antenna being longer and things like that. So if you're playing in the backyard with your friends, you're not with a field, you're not being given specific frequencies to use by your admins, you can always use a radio, set them to walkie-talkie frequencies, and then plug and play, and you're good.
Yep, that's correct. And then something else is like, which one do I get? Like I said, this video is not going to be fully in-depth on how to pick a radio or how to pick a walkie-talkie to buy. That's not for this video. This is more about the use of them. But I just want to give you guys some information about it, kind of steering you in the right direction if you've not gotten yourself a radio yet. The biggest one that airsofters use is going to be a Baofeng UV5R. However, they're not the best radios, but a lot of people use them, so you can find a lot of people that know more about them. Even people that know more about it than me, all I know is what I've used, and that's the UV5R, except for my current main radio is the UV82, also a Baofeng, just because it can transmit to 2 different frequencies at the same time. Most radios you can receive from 2 different frequencies at the same time, but in order to transmit to the other frequency, you have to unlock it, switch channels, then transmit, switch back, lock it again, and it's a hassle. But the UV5R actually allows for you to have a dual PTT or push to talk, and I can actually talk to 2 different frequencies depending on which button I push. As a squad leader, I do that so I can talk to command and then I can talk to my squad. So I use the UV82 for that. I recently got a new radio. I can't remember the brand of it off the top of my head, but it's more on the higher end because you can get a UV5R for probably about $20 on Amazon, and then you can get the UV82 for maybe about $35 on Amazon. And once again, I will say be careful with them. These are cheap Chinese stuff, and at one point the UV5R at least was been outlawed for certain frequencies because it's not supposed to have access to certain frequencies, which it does. But once again, for the scope of airsoft, you should be fine. Just make sure to do your own research on the stuff and don't follow what I say, because I'm not telling you about laws and stuff. That's your own responsibility. No matter what I say, it's your responsibility to know the laws for where you're at and what you're doing. So that's on you, but I can at least give you some information that I know about.
Yes, and as far as whether you should get a radio or a walkie-talkie, obviously you can get a lower-end walkie-talkie, and it can work for you, especially if you're just playing. You and your friends know you have walkie-talkies and you're going to go to the field together. But I'd always recommend a radio, especially even a lower-end radio, over a walkie-talkie, because that jump, even if it's a very small financial jump from a $10 walkie-talkie to a $15 or $20 radio, a cheaper Baofeng, is going to be a big jump in quality. As far as how far you can transmit walkie-talkies, I have had no luck over like half a mile, whereas with radios, even cheaper Baofengs, you usually half a mile is pretty easy. It's when you get to about half a mile to mile mark where those
Yep.
radios start to fall out.
Yep.
But they also have way better quality in the process. So you can hear way clearly, you can transmit way more clearly and louder. So those radios are going to be a lot more. Even a lower tier radio is going to be better over a mid-tier walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend. It's so much more bang for your buck to put an extra $10 into it and get a real radio over a walkie-talkie, even if it's just about bang.
Yep, and I will also say for both radios and walkie-talkies, both, your environment greatly contributes to how they perform, because if you're like in Oklahoma where we are, or someplace with a ton of trees and hills, that is going to cause interference. If you have a bunch of trees in between you and the other person, you're going to have a hard time. If you have a bunch of hills in between you, you're going to have a hard time, versus if you're both on top of two hills with open access to each other, it's going to be able to reach a lot further. So that greatly determines how far you can actually transmit and receive. But you can also, for most radios, I'm not too sure about walkie-talkies because most of the antennas are built in, you can't change them, but a lot of radios will actually allow you to switch out the antennas for longer antennas that have more range and more power. Now, something to keep note of is if you do get something like that, you have to be a little bit further apart. Otherwise, if you're too close, there's going to be bad interference. Same way, even with these two right here, if we try to transmit these two to each other where they're standing, they're going to have a hard time. They're going to cause a lot of interference, and it's going to leave that loud pitch screaming sound that you do not want to hear. So if that is ever happening, step a little bit further away from each other when you're testing your radios out. But pretty much without further ado, what I want to go into is the main topic of this video, which is actually the communication and basic use of the radio in a airsoft or combat situation. This is for you to use the radio with proper etiquette as well as proper communication, so then you can be a better asset to your team and be able to everybody just have an overall better experience. And so just a few basics here is to make sure, for one, know what button you're pushing. If you're just sitting there pushing a bunch of random buttons, you're going to have a problem. And the biggest thing I can tell you guys is be careful where you put the radio. If you put the radio just somewhere in your pocket and you're running around, you're going to be hitting that button while you're running. And then everybody else that's trying to use the radio, all they're going to get is you pushing the button every so often. That's going to leave a loud static in their ear. Nobody else can use the channel because you're clouding it up with the random chatter that's on there, and that's called, what we call that is called hot miking. What that means is you're hitting the button when you're not meaning to, and the microphone's just going plain static, and it's just a bunch of distractions that is not necessary. So make sure you put your radio in a spot where the button's not going to be pushed, whether it's in a protective sleeve. I've seen some guys put like their PTT on their shooting side, and so when they rifle the gun, they're going to hit the button, and then all of a sudden every time they go to shoot their replica, they're hot miking, and then everybody else is getting this loud static and nobody else can use the channel, and that's just a bad experience overall. So the biggest thing I can say is just make sure you put the radio in a spot where you're not going to accidentally hit that button when you are just going around not meaning to transmit. Another thing that's very important is when you go to speak, already have thought through what you're going to say. Don't sit there, push the button, hold it down, and leave it there as you're going and sitting there in silence because you don't have any idea what you were going to say before transmitting. It's not a phone call where you're on a constant signal talking to the person like you're casually chatting. It is a direct contact and direct contact back. And so make sure that you have a plan of what you're going to say before you say it. This also limits you having like a panic sounding voice where no one can understand you, and it just is overall a better communication experience for not only you but for the person you're trying to send traffic to and anybody else on that frequency.
Yeah, so what that also means is that with radios you have to remember that it's not like a phone call or a Discord call or even like a open like chat on a video game or a party or something like that. You have to remember that if someone is talking on the radio frequency or on your walkie-talkie frequency, no one else can transmit. So if as soon as you push your push the talk button on wherever your push to talk or your radio is, it is completely fully filling that channel. So no one else can talk, no one else can send any traffic or anything like that. So like you said, that's why it's really important to keep everything you're going to say short, because you may be in a bad situation and you need cover fire, or you need whatever it is, and you may be talking on the line, but your buddy may also be in the same situation or in a worse situation, and he needs to get traffic through as well. So whatever you're going to say before, I know stressful situations, we want to get on the mic and tell our friends that we're in trouble because we're about to get flanked by the enemy, but we need to really think about what I'm going to say first, because if you sit here and ramble off a whole bunch over the radio, you could be possibly putting your buddies in a bad situation, because they need to talk on the radio as well. This also gets worse when you get to a bigger, larger squad size elements. It's not that bad when you have 2 and 3 people, but if you work it up to 8 to 10 to 12 people, it can get really bad, because you're on a line with 12 people, and if you're talking, no one else can talk, and they're all hearing you. So you have to remember that you can't keep that line. You can't keep sending traffic. You can't keep sending things over and over again. You can't send long messages. You have to really condense a lot of things down. That's what abbreviations are for, things like that. That's also like what you said earlier, where you don't want to hot mic, because if I'm walking around, I have my radio on my shooting side, or I have my push to talk in a bad spot, and I'm constantly bumping that. If my friends, even if I'm not trying to send traffic, I'm in a good situation, I don't need to use my radio right now. If I'm bumping that push to talk button or whatever it may be, and I'm accidentally sending traffic, I could be messing up my friends, and I'm not even intending to send traffic or anything. And I'm clogging the line. I'm filling up the radio, and no one else can talk. And my buddies that may be trying to get help or talk back to command or accomplish some objective or whatever it is, or even talk to me, because if you're sending traffic, you can't receive traffic. So I could be in a completely good spot, but my buddies need cover fire, and I don't know it because I'm hot micing and they can't get traffic to me. So you really need to think about where your push to talk buttons are, keep your radio protected, and try not to bump that as best you can. Keep that protected.
Exactly. And to kind of carry on from what he was saying about, it's a little bit different if you're just talking to just you and 1 or 2 other people, as opposed to a whole bunch, like a giant squad. And before we get to there, I just want to let you know that there are some things that you can do to help improve your conversation before you get in a large group. So this is even if it's just you and 1 other person, or you and 2 other people. So I'm going to teach you a few things that you can do to help improve your communication skills with those few amount of people before we go into how to actually operate a radio if you're in a large squad or even a giant platoon of teammates that you're all sharing the same frequency. And so the first thing that you need to do is to be very clear with what you said. Like we said, have a plan of what you're going to say. Also, remember that you do not see the same thing that your teammate is seeing. You're using the radio because you're not in the same spot, right? If you are within earshot of somebody, why are you on the radio cluttering the channel with chatter that's not necessary because your teammate's right there? Don't use the radio just because it's cool and you want to use the radio. Instead, use the radio when it is necessary. Just because you're a little bit up the trail and you don't want to yell at your teammate because you're trying to be a little bit stealthy, instead of going on the radio, how about you guys formulate some sort of hand signals to do? How about a simple one? Stop. Instead of going, stop, 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 right? Or how about, okay, let's go. Or hold on, and then tell them to kind of come up. They can walk up to you, and then you whisper to them, guess what? You're not using the radio to clutter the channel from somebody else, and you're not giving away your position because the radios can be a little bit loud if you do not have some sort of hearing device or to listen in without it going on the speaker, right? And so just make sure you are using the radio when it's necessary to do so. And so let's say you are in a necessary situation, you kind of have a plan of what you're going to say. What do you say? Well, the first thing that you're going to say is you're going to give an intro, and then you're going to say the person's name. This also goes especially into when you're in a large group, but this is a good thing to practice even if it's just you and a friend. And so in my case, I got the wolf here. So I would go on the comm and say, Moose the Wolf, do you copy? Over?
Go for the wolf.
What that does is, let's say there was another person in our group, so let's say we're at least 3 people all with radios. What that does is, Moose to the Wolf, do you copy? Over? That means, instead of me going, Moose to the Wolf, I've got like 6 guys directly to your left about, well, what if he's dead? What if his radio's not working? That is a long time that I'm just sitting there on that mic that somebody else could be telling me what's going on, or what if there's a guy sneaking up behind me that he sees that he needs to tell me about? nobody else can access that channel while I'm talking, and so it's always a good idea to state who you are, who you're talking to, and wait for them to respond before you send your traffic.
Exactly, because that tells him that I'm listening to what he's saying now. He is requesting to talk to me. He's Moose the Dwarf. He's talking to me. I may be in a situation where I can't be on the radio right now, or I can't listen to him. I could be actively going through a building. I could be prepping a frag, talking to my teammates, yelling at my teammates, whatever it may be, and I can't talk on the radio right now. I may not have even heard him request to communicate. So so if he requests and then immediately starts talking, I may not hear him at all. So it's always good to say Moose to DeWolf, and then I'll respond by saying go for DeWolf, you know, yes, so I'll respond somehow and let him know that I heard him and that I'm listening, and then we can communicate.
Strategy wise as well. For example, if I go Moose to DeWolf, do you copy, and he doesn't respond after me trying 2-3 times to do that, that probably means he is dead. If he is dead, the last thing I want to do is try to give my location, because if I give my location and he's dead and he's got his radio on speaker, guess what? Everybody nearby him now knows where I'm at too. And so if he just died because an enemy sniper came up and slit his throat, and now I'm saying, Moose to the Wolf, I'm behind you about 2 trees over, are you still alive? Now guess what? The enemy sniper now knows where I'm at too. And so it's always a good idea to first send your introduction, Moose to DeWolf, do you copy over, wait for him to give the all clear, go for DeWolf, or send traffic, and then you can go ahead and send your traffic.
Exactly. It's also important as you scale it up. So if I'm in a squad with Moose and DeWolf, or Moose and Red myself, and Moose is talking to Red, if he says Moose to Red, I immediately know that conversation's not for me. I don't need to listen. I can continue on with whatever I'm doing. Instead of, because as soon as, remember, everyone on the same frequency hears everything that every other person on the frequency says. So if he is talking to Red, they're on a completely different part of the field. They're doing something on their own. Whatever it is, the information doesn't relate to me, and I'm off doing my own thing. If he's trying to talk to Red, as soon as I hear Moose to Red, I know conversation's not for me. It's not important. I don't need to listen, and I can continue to do whatever it is I'm doing. And I don't have to be a part of that conversation. However, so it's really important for your teammates as well, so you're not trying to explain things to your teammates and make their lives harder or busier than they already are trying to be in the fight.
Also, technically, let's say an enemy player got a hold of your guy's radio and then said something into it, telling you to go somewhere or to do something, and you just went ahead and did it thinking it was one of your guys. Also not a good situation to be in. And so technically most fields don't allow that, but some places do. And so once you kind of get through the intro, there's a few common phrases that you can say to kind of help your conversation be a little bit more precise and everybody knows what you're talking about. For example, like I said, Moose to the Wolf, do you copy? What that usually means is, hey, do you understand? Or do you hear me? Or something like that is, I copy essentially means understand, or like I understand. So Moose to the Wolf, do you copy? Or are you there? Can you hear me? And then he'll go for the Wolf, or he'll say, I copy.
Or on the alternative of that, let's say I didn't hear him, I might say something like, can you repeat last, say again last, something like that. If I don't know, if I say I didn't hear him, if he says, example conversation, Moose to DeWolf, go for DeWolf, you got 2 enemies on your 6, then I may say, I didn't hear it, we'll say, can you say again last, can you repeat that, Moose, something like that, to let him know that I didn't hear that, instead of just assuming that he, that whatever happened.
And then like repeat last or saying again last also means like the last thing I said, so instead of me going back and repeating the entire conversation, I'm just repeating that last little bit I said. So go for Moose to the Wolf, do you copy? And then he'll say, go for DeWolf. I go, okay, there you got 3 enemies on your right, do you copy? Over. And they'll say again last, 3 enemies on your right. Copy? Good copy. Or copy that. And so now we had a very precise conversation between us. Very few words were actually exchanged, but yet a lot of information was given. Also, very, very, very important, we'll get into this a little bit more down the road, but is the positions you say, never say there or here. If you do, it better be immediately followed or previously stated where that position is, because once again, he's not in the same position as I am. I may not have any idea where he's at, he may have no idea where I am at, so I can't just say, yeah, DeWolf, you got about 3 enemies over there to your left. What does that mean? That could mean anything in the world. And also, what if he's facing this way but his body's facing this way? Is that left this way or left that way? You don't know. So instead of saying that, you can say like left, so it has a general area, but then you give something a little bit more descriptive. So Moose to the Wolf, do you see that big pine tree to your left? Over.
Good copy, over.
There is about 3 enemies directly behind that to your 9 o'clock. Do you copy?
Copy that, over.
So now he knows exactly where they are. I gave them an exact position. I gave him a reference position left. So now he knows a general area. Then I gave him a specific big pine tree. Sees it. I see about 3 enemies. Now he's looking. I see them. Good copy. Now he's going to go after them. And so now we are able to give him a precise location based on his position. That's the other thing I see a lot of new guys doing, is they will give call-outs based on their position, not the person they're talking about or talking to. So if I say, Mr. DeWolf, there's about 3 guys over to the right, well, what does that mean? I mean, my right could be his left for all we know. And so be very careful with how you say that. So another few phrases is, other than copy that, there is repeat last, there's say again. Of course, there's also over.
I'll jump in and say, also that applies to people as well, not just structures. So instead of saying there's 3 guys to your right, you always want to specify, are they friendly, are they enemy, something like that. Instead of, dwarf to moose.
Go for moose.
There's a sniper in front of you.
Copy that.
Is it a friendly sniper or an enemy sniper?
Exactly.
Is that a threat, or is that something okay, the sniper in front of me, I can move up. So in that situation, he's probably going to assume it's an enemy, but we can't always assume that. We always need to say, is that a friendly sniper? Is that an enemy sniper? Is that a friendly element? Is the enemy element? We always want to specify, is that a friendly or an enemy? And if you think about it, it's not that much. It doesn't take that much longer to say. Instead of saying there's 3 guys to your right, I can always say there's 3 enemies to your right. There's 3 tangos to your right, just as easily as I can say there's 3 friendlies to your right. So it doesn't take that much longer, and you're literally just replacing the word. You're not adding anything. You're just being that much more specific about
Take this situation as a very good explanation. If I say, Moose to the Wolf, you got a large squad heading your way.
Well,
what does that mean?
I'm getting reinforcements, or I'm about to be assaulted.
Exactly. That can mean very 2 different things depending on whether it's friendly or enemy. And so, once again, goes back to the same thing we said earlier: is be sure of what you're going to say before you say it. If you're being shot at in the middle of a firefight and you just get on the comm just because you're panicking, you're going to be talking so much, you're going to panic voice. No one's going to be able to hear what you're saying, and if they can, they're not going to have any idea what you're talking about. So figure out what you're going to say. Talk in a smooth, clean manner. You don't need to scream into it. You don't need to eat the microphone either, but just speak in a calm, smooth, clear manner, and then everybody should be able to hear you just fine.
Yes, and also don't whisper if you're in a situation where you need to be quiet. Whispering does not come through the radio as anything intelligible. If I whisper, it's not going to work. What you should instead do is speak in a low tone. If you can speak clearly, but in a low or quiet a tone as possible, if I can get on my ASMR voice. And that's what you should go with.
Pretty bad on the microphone.
Instead of whispering, you should just speak in a low and quiet but smooth tone, so he knows what I'm saying. I don't know if the microphone's good enough to hear back what I'm saying.
No.
But if you want to pick up, you want to speak in a slow, smooth, low tone that's still quiet. That will still be intelligible. I may have to lean into my microphone, or he may have to turn his up a little bit, but it will still be intelligible. It just will be lower volume. So, obviously, I can stay quieter that way. You're obviously going to give your position away more than if you were literally whispering, but whispering's not going to be helpful. It's better to speak in a low tone or not speak at all than to try to whisper. Because whispering, you're saying something to give your position away, and he's not learning any information because whispering does not come through.
Exactly. Just a quick example. This is probably too loud because I'm talking normally, but if I talk like this, it's going to sound very bad. You're going to hardly be able to hear a word I'm saying. But versus if I talk like this, Moose to the Wolf, do you copy? Over?
Copy that.
Exactly. So you can still hear us, but it's not loud. It's not projecting like I am now. Now, real fast, so this video doesn't take too much time. The last thing I'm going to need to talk to you guys about is the proper radio etiquette when you are in a large group of people. And so all the stuff we just said, there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's pretty much the basics of it. So take all of that, apply it to this as well, but there's a few more steps to take note of, and it's just pretty much the same thing we told you. You need your intro, you need your call out, or you need your intro, wait for a response back, then send your traffic, and just very much, I can't stress this enough, make sure you do that so everyone knows who's talking, who they're talking to, especially if you're in a larger operation. And so that Moose to the Wolf means a whole lot more if you're in a squad of 20 guys or even 10 guys as opposed to just 1 or 2 guys. And so you might get away if it's just 3 of you in a friend group with the radios, but if you're adding people that don't know each other, then that is a good way to do that. That also helps you memorize your squad, your teammates' names if you don't have them memorized, as well as it helps them be able to figure out who is who by voice, so they can also tell who's what and where, right? And so for a large-scale operation, there's that. But also, if you're in a larger scale operation, what you may look at doing if you don't already have one is look at getting a squad lead, or what do they call it, an RTO?
RTO, radio operator.
Radio operator. And so what those two players can do is they contact command. So for example, let's say you had 60 people, right? You had 60 people plus command. And so let's say we had me, DeWolf, and Red, each as a squad lead. Instead of us all being on the same frequency contacting all 60 of those guys, instead I have my 20, he has his 20, Red has his 20, and then we are all on one frequency to talk to command and each other, and then we have another frequency for our squad. So that means the only people I'm hearing in my ear is my squad, and then command or my other squad leads, and that's it. I'm not getting his 20 or his 20, so there's 40 less people talking in my ear, and that saves me and the rest of the squad a whole lot of hassle. And so that means I can just go Moose to DeWolf, so-and-so is over there if I need to talk about his squad or something. He can contact his squad, I'll contact mine, or as an RTO, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, it's generally bad form to have more than about 15 or so people on one frequency, and at that point you got to think about it like a family tree of radio frequencies, where if you're down here and you want to talk to somebody over there, then you're going to go up through the chain and back down. So like you said, we'll have our squads, we'll have our squad frequency, we'll also have a command frequency. So if I need to talk to someone in his squad, I'll talk to him, and then he will talk to that person in that squad. So but that's again so we don't have that many people cluttered on one frequency, because people hot mic and people need to communicate more information. And if, like you said, a group of 60, there's for sure going to be people that need to transmit information at the same time, and it's just not going to work with 60 people in the same group. So
in all honesty, the 20 guys is also too much. Like you said, 10 is a high number.
10 is a high number.
And so 10 people on the same frequency is a lot of people to be on the same frequency, all using the radio. Granted, if they all knew how to use it perfectly, that would make things a whole lot better. But ultimately, 10 to 15 is the max that you want to do. And if you have a larger squad than that, for some reason, break it up into like a fire team or something, and then they do the same thing. And that way it makes it a whole lot easier on you and the squad itself, so you don't have a whole bunch of people talking and you have no idea what's going on. You only have a few people talking, and then you're talking to a few, and if you need to reach somebody else, you contact one of the points of contact.
Exactly. The whole system can be scaled up and scaled down as needed.
Yes. That's the whole chain of command. The command, the squad lead, the RTO, fire team leads. And so if you have a problem with another player, for example, whether it's on your team or the enemy team, best way to do that is through that same chain of command. At most Milsim events, you're going to have a squad lead. If you have a problem with you, teammate, or another player, contact your squad lead, because guess what? He's going to be able to contact command right then and there, instead of you trying to find the enemy player or whatever and just cause a scene. It's just not a good idea.
Yeah, so the last thing that we'll talk about is specifically how to set up your radio, particularly with your kit. So typically you'll have your radio, which is going to be the main thing that is going to be the transmitting and receiving, specifically that's the transmitting and receiving unit. But you also have a few other things that are going to add on to that can make your life easier, but you just have to understand the capabilities of those and understand that they can make your life harder logistically, especially with your kit. So obviously you have your radio. That should, remember, your push-to-talk button or your PTT should be protected and somewhere put out of the way. It generally, and also you're going to have your antenna sticking up, so if I put my radio right up front, this is going to be kind of a problem for me trying to play, because my radio's right up front, my antenna's right up front, it's going to be in my way, I'm going to be hitting it, it's going to get snagged on things, so that's not good. It's generally not good form. So you want to have your radio out of the way somewhere. I see some people have the radio on their back. That's not that big of a problem, except that you can't access it. If Moose's radio is on his back and then he needs to change channels for whatever reason, or he's having an issue, he can't correct that. He has to get a squad member or someone else to come up and correct that for him. So I like to keep my radio off to the side in my on my right side over here, so I can still get to it, but it's not in the way. I still have it on from a demonstration earlier. So I like to keep it out of the way, but my antenna's out of the way. It's out of the way, but I can still access it if I need to change my frequencies and get to it. I know you do a very similar thing over here. So the physical button on the radio that you're pushing to talk is called the push to talk, but as well as the unit right here that is mounted on your chest that we'll talk about in a second is also called a push to talk. So the whole unit itself is called a push to talk, as well as the button on the radio is called a push to talk. It gets a little bit confusing, and I'll try to explain and walk through it, but so your physical radio itself that does the transmitting and receiving is going to connect to your push-to-talk unit. That is going to be you can generally run with just a radio, but again, you need to be able to hear and talk into it. So you will have to have it mounted somewhere up high towards your chest, and I really wouldn't advise that for airsoft. You can do it if your kit is set up for it. I've seen some people do it really well, but it's going to be generally very difficult. For especially for airsoft, I'd recommend kind of a minimum of your radio plus your push to talk, and that makes it way easier to set things up. You can have your radio stowed away somewhere and talk, have your talk button somewhere else. Lost it. Okay, give me a second.
What the PTTs are good for is that, like you said, the radio needs to be in a spot that's protected where we don't accidentally hit the button and you can hear it. If somebody has their radio down here on their belt or in their side pocket, and somebody tries to contact them through the radio, you're not going to be able to hear what they're saying because the radio speaker is too far away. And so if you have the radio in a safe spot and you get a PTT that can extend from it like I do, not only can I hear them literally right here in my ear, it's sometimes too loud and I have to turn it down, but then also it's very simple for me to just go up here and put a button here. This is why you see a lot of law enforcement put their PTTs in a similar location. But you can also get things like an earpiece that wraps around and goes inside your ear, or like the Wolf has here, he has his headsets, his Impact Sport Howard lights that he can put on his helmet and then flip down over his ears, and that way he can hear what's going on. These also act as a very good noise canceling thing if something's loud, but these also have a noise amplifying for quieter noise, so it's actually really cool. But mainly what those are also good for is so the radio can he can hear it clear as day. But also, let's say you're trying to be a little bit sneaky and you don't want your radio blasting in your location, or just if you're trying to be in a quiet situation and it starts blasting because somebody randomly says something in the radio that compromises your position, that is another good reason for you to have some sort of headset or earpiece. I used to run my headset all the time, and if I wanted to, I may also use an earpiece, but now I pretty much run just with the speaker, simply for the fact I do YouTube and I want people to hear my radio over my gameplay. I could technically get another radio and a audio recorder to record it separate in a separate location, but that is honestly just more hassle than it's worth. Most of the time for an airsoft thing, your radio is not going to give you away that much unless you have a bunch of people that don't know how to use it or using it, and more often than not I have more problems with people not having radios than I do having them just not know how to use them, for the most part.
Yeah. So as far as your radio system goes, you have your radio. We covered your PTT, and then you have to remember that you have you'll have your wire that goes in from your PTT to your headset. So mine specifically is mounted on my helmet, and I run a helmet, so I prefer it that way. But you can get them individual to put over your hat, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It all works the same way as far as radio to PTT. You have to remember, though, you have your wire that goes from your PTT to your headset, and then you want to remember that with all of that, you want to keep it tight, nothing loose or hanging out. I have my PTT wire that is connected to my radio right here. I have my wire, you can see right here. I can still use my radio and everything, but I have everything tucked across my back to come to my PTT right here, so nothing's ever in the way, nothing's ever hanging out. And then, like, you have your little cord right there, then that runs straight from my I have my helmet on, that runs straight from my PTT to my helmet, and then this is just, what is that, 6 inches or a foot, and yeah, and then so that keeps everything tight, so that won't get snagged and that won't be in the way of anything. So and like you said, that's just so it'll play from the radio into your ears. Some radio or some more expensive headsets will also have microphones on them, so then that will play you right from your microphone, from your headset as well. But that'll be something that comes with more expensive headsets. Something you have to remember with this is that not every radio is compatible with every PTT, is compatible with every wire, is compatible with every headset. So generally with Baofangs, you will find a lot of things compatible with them because they're so common. You'll find my PTT is specifically a Baofeng PTT, but you'll see a lot of aftermarket ones, especially on Amazon, that are good, that will work. You just have to remember that they have the 2 prongs, and you have to look for what connectors that they have, and remember that not everything is compatible
Yeah.
with everything. You'll see a lot of the more expensive ones too have screw-on PTT instead of
Yeah.
having prongs at all.
Yeah.
They'll screw on, that makes them waterproof. Those are better. Those are going to be more expensive, but those will not be compatible with anything that has
Yeah.
prongs at all. And then
Some of the older ones actually come with, or some of the older ones use the old, not the 3.5 millimeter jacks, but the what is it, the 5.0 millimeter
Yeah,
jacks.
yeah.
And so they're the giant audio jacks, similar to what you would see on like an electric guitar or some microphone or something. And it's a massive thing, which also requires another wire, a bigger wire, which is heavier and more expensive as well. Granted, those types of radios are usually the more advanced ones that can reach a long, long ways and far beyond the scope of what you would really need for airsoft, but that is still a thing you have to keep note of. Like you said, the connection is going to be different each radio. These two Baofangs are different, but they have the same connection, but you may find a Baofeng that's a different connection because it's a different model or something.
Yes.
So like you said, be very mindful of which connections you get.
Exactly, and then you have to remember that going on from there, you want to and get your headset involved. Well, let's say your headset is a 3.5 millimeter audio jack because it's a headset like these, and then you've gotten a really good radio with a really good PTT, and that's awesome. But then that doesn't work with your headset, and that's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
So then you have to either get an adapter or get a different headset.
Yeah.
So you have to just remember that not everything works with everything. As far as, and then you have 4 points in the system as far as your radio to your PTT to your wire to your headset. If
Yeah.
you're running a headset, which is totally optional and not completely necessary.
Yeah.
But I would say that the best that I would say, not at minimum, because you can run a radio on its own, but it's generally advisable to run a radio with a PTT, because that will just make it a whole lot more convenient and able for you to work that easier.
Alright guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this video. Like I said, this was not supposed to be an in-depth thing about how to set up your radios, which radios to get. This is more of supposed to be how to properly use your radio so you can be a better asset to your team in the airsoft battlefield. Just a few things to keep in reminder of is, once again, be mindful of what you say, think before you speak, plan what you're going to speak before you ever touch that button, and then once you do touch the button, keep it blunt, concise, to the point. Make it as short as possible with giving as much information with as few of words as you can. Make sure you give the intros, wait for a response back, and don't be using the radio if you don't need to. If you can kind of signal your guy over or something, if the situation allows, and you can talk to him, do that over using the radio. Granted, if you're on a small team where it's just like you and 2 other people that are using radios, you can let a few of those rules kind of slide. But especially if you're in a larger of 5 or more people, then definitely you want to be minimizing the use of that radio, because it's just loud, it's a distraction, and it's a tool, but it's a tool that has to be used properly in order to do any good. Otherwise, it's like trying to use a hammer to nail in a screw. It doesn't quite work the same. And so, with that said, guys, make sure, like I said, to look up for my Discord server. Links in the description of this video and all of my videos. That way you guys can not only receive more help and better insight on stuff by joining and asking questions, and then I can help you guys out on one-on-one. That way I can help you guys steer you in the right direction that best suits you. These videos I try to keep somewhat vague to help everybody, but if you want more specific help for your situation or whatever you are needing, the Discord server is the best place for that. Also, guys, I'm going to be looking into doing things with giveaways and some other types of content. Like I'm currently making a ghillie suit and all this types of stuff that I may try to do as videos, more podcasts and everything like that. You can find out all that information even before it happens and help out with that, and even possibly be in on podcasts and other stuff by joining that Discord server, and that's the best place to try to get more of that information. Anyway, guys, if you have need anything from me or have any questions, make sure to ask them on the Discord especially, but also in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one. See ya.